Joining us now here on Live Now is Washington Examiner White House correspondent Christian Daytok. Christian, thanks so much for being with us. You're in the briefing room, if not every day, a lot of the time. And so we could talk about a lot of what was in Lauren's report there. But how is the White House kind of formulating this today, 2 years on? What are they saying?
Well, Andrew, the White House is looking at today as sort of the midpoint in an extremely successful tenure President Biden has put in so far as president. And to their credit, he does have a lot to celebrate. The Inflation Reduction Act, the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, that bipartisan gun violence package we saw passed earlier this year. Of course, there was the bipartisan infrastructure law last year. And like the package mentioned, inflation is down. Things are feeling up in Washington. That being said, there are plenty of reasons the Biden folks should be apprehensive heading into this latter half of President Biden's first term in office.
You're right. The record suggests, at least legislatively, kind of a lot of accomplishments there. But I think you and I can both agree, and your reporting probably suggests it's not going to be such an easy road in the next 2 years because House Republicans have a very slim majority. And one of the first hurdles, Christian, that they're going to face, the Biden White House, is what to do with this debt ceiling, this limit that needs to be raised by, late summer, early fall. We're getting some reporting to suggest that Biden could meet with House Speaker McCarthy about this. Is that going to be kind of the first real test of divided government for the Biden White House?
I think without a doubt it's going to be a real test for the Biden administration. We've heard from Karine Jean-Pierre, from President Biden himself, this is a line in the sand. They absolutely will not negotiate on the debt limit. And again, to their credit, it has been addressed in a bipartisan fashion over the past several administrations. I think 78 times in total throughout U.S. history has Congress raised the debt limit without forcing concessions from the White House. That being said, Kevin McCarthy, House Republicans, we heard throughout the midterms that this was going to be their plan. They wanted to curb the Biden administration's spending packages and potentially even cut funding to programs like Social Security and Medicare, which have been on the books for decades. We're going to see this come to a head when President Biden meets with Speaker McCarthy, possibly as soon as next week. And it's fireworks, honestly, in the briefing room. It's tough for the American people to watch, but again, it makes for a delicious news cycle.
Yeah, we just want to put up this tweet from Speaker McCarthy saying, President Biden, I accept your invitation to sit down and discuss a responsible debt ceiling increase to address irresponsible government spending. I look forward to our meeting. Christian, let's talk a little bit about foreign policy. We know the war in Ukraine is coming up on the one-year anniversary as well. That happened under President Biden's watch. Also, the kind of botched withdrawal from Afghanistan after 20 years there amongst U.S. forces. And Biden always kind of touts his foreign policy bona fides, his past as the chairman of the powerful Senate Foreign Relations Committee. How is he doing on this mark, would you say, foreign policy-wise?
Well, the first year of his presidency, I think you could be graded objectively as a failure, given that black mark in Afghanistan. But the second year, his handling of the war in Ukraine seems to be much more positively received, even from Republicans here in Washington. Now, that's not to say he doesn't have some detractors. There's obviously opponents on the Hill about the near blank check we've written the Ukrainian government in their prolonged fight against this Russian invasion. But again, the ability to marshal these separate countries within NATO, within the G7, to try and effectively cut off Russia's economy, I would have argued that would have been nearly impossible to achieve based on the handling of the Afghan withdrawal. Again, we don't know how long this war will last, but you have to give President Biden at least passing grades for his handling of the Ukrainian war. But again, the scale is 50-50, and when you think back again about what happened in Afghanistan, it's hard to say that this has been all positive marks based on his handling of foreign policy so far.
Yeah, that's so true. In Lauren's report as well, we heard that he got a Supreme Court pick. He got Ketanji Brown Jackson through the nomination and confirmation process. So he has one of those high-profile judges under his belt. What about the rest of the federal judiciary? From what I've been reading, some of his nominations are outpacing those of former President Trump's.
That's correct. The president has had the most judges confirmed through this point in a presidency. He did pass his predecessor for that mark. Again, President Trump loved to hang his hat on the number of judges he had confirmed. And of course, he had 3 justices placed on the Supreme Court. And we saw the fallout from that this past summer with the Dobbs decision and the reversal of Roe v. Wade. So I think that is something that Biden fans and supporters can certainly point to as an area where they can progress.
Yeah.
That being said, it's going to be a lot more difficult with the thin majority they have in the Senate and coming up on a presidential election. There might be some different feelings given how the president has been handling this past week. And again, I'm sure we'll talk about this document scandal. This is sort of the looming cloud in Washington right now. All the president's accomplishments are sort of being looked at through this lens of something that just a few months ago, even some Republicans in D.C. were saying this was, a wholly unforced error from former President Trump, and now President Biden is finding himself in a similar situation.
Yeah, let's get the latest from that from Fox News. White House correspondent Jackie Heinrich will bring you in to answer more questions. I have a lot of questions about this. Let's watch.
The press secretary backing up President Biden.
He does indeed take classified documents seriously. I'm just not going to go beyond that.
After his musings on the outcome of the investigation, his administration is broadly refusing to talk about.
I think you're going to find there's nothing there.
Threatened to undermine Biden's other statements that he takes classification laws seriously.
I have no regrets.
It's a question Biden himself directed at President Jimmy Carter's nominee for CIA director back in 1977, when Biden was a senator on the Intelligence Committee and sided with Republicans to kill Ted Sorensen's nomination. Biden dug up an affidavit showing Sorensen mishandled classified documents for a JFK biography and asked at the confirmation hearing, does he respect and understand the rule under which he will serve? I'm not sure whether or not Mr. Sorensen could be indicted or convicted under the espionage statutes or fired from his White House job if that were the issue. Those same questions are now being asked of Biden by the House Intelligence Committee, saying the mere discovery of Biden's classified documents, quote, would put President Biden in potential violation of laws protecting national security, including the Espionage Act and the Presidential Records Act. The committee's request for a national security damage assessment is still going ignored 10 days later. Despite refusals to officially comment, the administration may tacitly be trying to pin this on Biden's aides from when he was vice president. The Washington Post reports Kathy Chung, Biden's longtime executive assistant, confided to associates that she is distressed that she might have inadvertently been involved in moving or storing classified material at the center. The Post cites a person briefed on Chung's account, suggesting someone inside the government is pointing fingers at Chung, and it's sinking in.
Somebody made a mistake at some point, inadvertently transferred. That is the clear implication from everything you've seen, everything that you've read.
President Biden did make some other news today, inviting House Speaker Kevin McCarthy to what he called a little discussion about the national debt. McCarthy tweeted he would accept the president's invitation and looked forward to a conversation about how to responsibly raise the debt ceiling. At the White House, Jackie Heinrich, Fox News.
Okay, Jackie, thanks so much. Bringing Christian Daytalk back in on the conversation here. Christian, give us a sense in the briefing room, because we watch it here each and every day on Live Now. Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, going to great lengths to refer all questions about the Biden document scandal to either the Department of Justice or the White House counsel's office. So we're not getting much from Jean-Pierre there. Is that frustrating for you, especially being there in the room?
It's incredibly frustrating. I think the whole press corps is feeling that right now, Andrew. And I think Karine is in a very tough position. I'm not sure any press secretary could handle this better than she currently is. That being said, it's still a messaging disaster. This is an administration that came into office promising absolute transparency, a complete reversal of what the Trump administration did on a day-to-day basis. And this is anything but that. As we've had some of this information leak out day by day, both from the White House counsel and from the Justice Department, it became clear the Biden administration knew about this investigation much earlier than it was first leaked to the press just last week. That being said, we've been told the review had been completed. That turned out to be not the case just one day later. It's becoming more frustrating each day we have one of these briefings to be referred to the Justice Department. Again, considering that President Biden is saying he did nothing wrong, and the total stonewalling we're getting in the briefing room.
Yeah, I can kind of sense the very palpable frustration there, especially amongst you guys, other White House reporters. Not getting much on that front. So we'll just have to wait and see now that this special prosecutor has been appointed to look into this. Biden just yesterday in California said he has no regrets. He said there's no there. Christian, just lastly, let's just talk about the future, about 2024. We heard in Lauren's report that no announcement or decision could be coming about re-election plans until after the State of the Union next month. And I think last time I spoke with you, that was still a question up in the air. President Biden, Vice President Harris, they get asked about this all the time. What's the straight answer? Do we know yet?
The straight answer is we believe the president will seek re-election. That's certainly what White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre is telling us he intends to do. That being said, this was all before this document scandal landed just last week. I do expect the president to still run. I'd expect him to announce shortly after his State of the Union address on February 7th. But I also expect the document scandal to prod some younger Democratic challengers to primary him. Again, given the success President Biden had ushering Democrats a much greater than expected performance in the midterm elections, you'd think he wouldn't be challenged. I think that story has totally changed now. It might not be as crowded of a field as the Republican side will be, but I expect President Biden to have to get on the road and defend his record come 2024.
All right. Christian Daytalk, as always, with the Washington Examiner. We appreciate your time, your reporting. Have a good weekend. Thanks so much.